Hello, let us discuss essentials of valid tender. Even though a tender of performance discharges a party from any further liability, however, it must satisfy the following conditions in order to be valid. A tender to be valid must therefore fulfill the following conditions. Number one, it must be unconditional. The tender must be in accordance with the terms of the contract. If a tender is accompanied by a condition which prevents it being a perfect and fit tender, the other party is entitled to reject it. For example, A offers a lesser amount than what is due under the contract. A is said to have not made a valid tender. Another example, A offers to pay the entire sum due to B, his creditor, provided B can procure an admission for A's son in school. This is not a valid tender. Third example, a debtor offered to pay B, his creditor, the amount due to him if B sells certain goods to him. It is a conditional tender and thus is invalid. Second essential, it must be at the proper time and place. What is proper place and time normally can be gathered from the intention of the parties, the circumstances of the case, as well as the prevailing custom in the trade. Therefore, delivery of goods after the working hours is not a valid tender. Therefore, a tender of goods after the business hours or tender of the goods or money before the due date will not be valid. Example, X is a tenant of Y. X offers rent due by him to A, the manager of Y at the theatre or at a movie hall. A is not bound to accept the tender as it is not made at a proper place. Another example, A owes B rupees 1000 payable on the 1st of December with interest. A offers to pay on the 1st of October the amount with interest up to 1st of October. It is certainly not a valid tender since it is not made at the stipulated time. Second essential is tender must be in a proper form. A tender by means of a check is not proper unless the other party accepts it or has asked for payment by check because payment is subject to encashment and here the tender may be rejected. B. A mere offer by post to pay the amount due does not amount to a valid tender of performance. C. The money tender must be current coin of realm. Tender to be valid must be in a proper form. The third essential is it must be by a person who is in position and is willing to perform the promise. The person to whom a tender is made must be given a reasonable opportunity to ascertain that the person by whom it is made is able and willing to do the whole of what he is bound by his promise to do. Tender of a part of a debt or in small installments is also invalid. In case of goods to be delivered, it is the duty of the tenderer to go to the other party's place of business and inform him of his readiness to deliver. Intimation that the goods are at the vendor's place and will be forwarded to the place named after examination and approval is not a proper performance. In order to be considered ready and willing, A person need not be in actual physical possession of the goods. It is enough if he has control over the goods or over them. Fourth essential is tenderer must give reasonable opportunity for inspection. In case of the tender of goods, the promisee must be given a reasonable opportunity to inspect the goods. In other words, a tender is not valid when the other party cannot inspect or examine the goods. If the offer is an offer to deliver anything to the promisee must have reasonable opportunity of examining or seeing that the thing offered is the thing which the promisor is bound by his promise to deliver. A tender of goods at such time and place when the other party cannot inspect the goods is not a valid tender. There is no valid tender where goods are locked in a box and other party is not allowed to open it. A tender made late in the day so that the other party could not make inspection of the goods is ineffective tender. Example: A contracts to deliver to B at his warehouse on the 1st March 1988 100 bales of cotton of a particular quality. In order to make an offer of performance with the effect, A must bring the cotton to B's warehouse on the appointed day under such circumstances that B may have a reasonable opportunity of satisfying himself that the cotton is of the right quality and that there are 100 bales. Fifth essential is tender to all is tender to one is tender to all. It must be made to the proper person. Tender must be made to a proper person, that is the promisee or his authorized agent. In case of joint promises, there is no need to offer performance to each promisee from the promisor. It may be made to one of the several joint promises. An offer to one of the joint promises has the same legal effect. Here it should be promises. It has the same legal consequences as an offer to all of them. Thus, in case of joint promise, that is to one joint lessors or co-mortgagee is also valid. Similarly, a tender to a stranger is not valid. Sixth essential of a valid tender is it must be for the whole quantity contracted for or for the whole obligation. It must not be in installments if the contract requires it in full. So here with this I have completed essentials of a valid tender. Thank you.